Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. How are you doing? Day after the trade deadline in Major League Baseball, the day before the rankings get updated over at FantasyGuru.com. Because remember, we do that the first of every month for baseball, which means tomorrow, August 1st, they'll be updated. All 600-plus players re-ranked, and we'll do it one other time in the month of September. Again, I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. I just said that. Let's repeat it just so you get the fact that we're from FantasyGuru.com. This is sponsored by FantasyGuru.com. I can't even say it. I'm trying to do a bit here, and I ruin it by not being able to talk. Well, so be it. You can follow me on Twitter, X, at The Ray Flowers. You can follow me on Instagram, at The Ray Flowers. You can find me actually in most places at The Ray Flowers, even if I don't necessarily run the account. Like I've got a TikTok account, I've got a Blue Sky account, I've got a Threads account, not really on there, but I'm on Twitter, X, and Instagram, again, at The Ray Flowers. We've got this show every day, Monday through Friday, on a variety of sources. You can always find the show when it's posted at fantasyguru.com. Click the Elite Plus tab at the top. That'll take you to all the shows we have, including this one on the Elite Plus network. You can obviously type us in Fantasy Sports Daily into your podcast network, whether it's YouTube Music or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Pandora. Fantasy Sports Daily should populate there. You can also follow us live and ask questions or leave comments at facebook.com/fantasyguruhq. You can also leave comments or ask questions live on youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. And then there's also the opportunity for you to watch on Twitter X at Fantasy Guru site, but you just can't leave any comments there. So there. That's how you get us Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're here rocking and rolling with you all. What are we talking about today? Well, of course, we're talking about what happened yesterday with the trade deadline. Flaherty, Scott, Rogers, Norby, Stowers, Cobb, Canha, Eloy, Jimenez, tons of relievers get traded. We'll go through all the big deals or all the bigger deals. Not every deal, but most deals we'll discuss here on the show. We'll then also talk about the promotion of Jackson Holliday, what's going on with Mr. Norby with the Marlins, Eugenio, Suarez, and Jeffrey Springs, and then a few injuries with Robles, Carter, and Trout. We'll then visit with Armando Marsal because it's a Wednesday. Armando's with us every Wednesday. Every Thursday is Tyler Beaker. Every Friday is Russell Clay. So today Armando will jump on. We'll talk some quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa and Jordan Love. What's going on with Jamar Chase? Are we getting nervous about this holdout thing? Antonio Gibson, Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell, Dameon Pierce, Joe Mixon, Chubba Hubbard, and Jonathan Brooks. Lots of running back talk with Armando Marsal. So that's the plan for today. And normally I leave this little thing up for those of you watching live, or even on tape delay, I guess, or tape delay. No one, when I say tape delay, do I sound old? I do sound old, right? On delay. I always say record things. I guess you're still recording things if you're using a DVR. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about after it's live. When it's no longer live. You usually out on the screen here, I have the rundown up. I'm going to change it up today because I wanted to highlight the actual trade. So let's throw that up on the screen here. Let me see if I can remove the brand there real quickly so people can see it a little bit better. There we go. So I'm going to leave that up on the screen. And what the heck? Let's make me smaller just in case. What the hell? What do you think? Smaller Ray? Oh, that's too small. We can't have that. That's just not enough Ray. Oh, that doesn't work. Does that? No, that gets rid of it completely. Let's throw it up here now. It would help if I knew how to use my screens, right? There we go. That's still too small. Let's just do this one. How about we'll just do this one? You'd rather look at the screen, right? Because there's a lot of names involved versus, my ugly face. So let's just dive right into it. And we'll talk about the players that were traded. And we'll also talk about the players that weren't traded. There's 3 big pitchers that weren't dealt. We'll talk about those situations before we wrap things up here on the show today. First of all, Jack Flaherty was traded by the Tigers to the Dodgers. The Dodgers, they seem to have a roster with like 35 players on it, right? Like they just kept making moves. Ahmed Rosario, Kevin Kiermaier just kept making moves. And one of the moves they made was to get Jack Flaherty because their rotation is all kinds of beat up. They're hoping to have Bobby Miller and Walker Buehler back. Obviously, if those two guys are healthy, this pitching staff, and Yamamoto too at some point, and Flaherty, and Kershaw and Glasnow, they'll have too many pitchers, but they're giving themselves options. Flaherty was one of the handful of arms that was thought to be on the move, that was thought to be a difference-making player. Now, interestingly enough, Flaherty's been really good. Already had people talking to me about Flaherty in Discord and everything right after the trade was made yesterday. But keep this in mind. And I said this yesterday without knowing that this was going to come out later. I was having a discussion in Discord over at fantasyguru.com, which you do have access to with whichever sport you subscribe with at fantasyguru.com to ask your questions. I said, look, if we're going to make a move to add Flaherty in a trade, I would have done it before he got dealt. But now if we're going to make a move, A, he's on the Dodgers now, which is going to increase the price. B, don't forget he's had multiple issues with his back. Okay. And we heard late last night that, we had a scenario with Ken Rosenthal reporting that the Yankees actually backed out of a deal for Flaherty because of concerns over his medical records. And again, with the Dodgers don't need Flaherty to make a start and throw 7 innings every time, 5 days through the rest of the way. They don't need that. They can skip a start. They can give him an extra day's rest. So they can massage this. At least that's their belief, right? And the cost wasn't very high. Lirizano and Sweeney was the return that the Tigers got. But the Yankees actually backed out of a deal for Flaherty. So something to think about if you're looking to make a move to add Flaherty in your fantasy leagues. Obviously, this is a positive for Flaherty. Great environment, winning environment. There's not a negative here for Flaherty, other than can he stay healthy? And that's been something that we've discussed with him this season and the years past, all that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind. The Padres made an interesting move. Now the Padres are going for it by not making the move for the big player, not the Juan Soto move, right? But making incremental improvements. And one area they addressed or decided to address was the bullpen. And Mad Dog Russo was on yesterday on MLB Network, and he was overflowing with the love of what the Padres are doing. One of the main things they did is that they got a couple of relievers, Brian Hoying and Tanner Scott. They sent away Snelling, Mazur, Pauly, and Bashir. So they paid a hefty prospect price. But Honing will go into the bullpen and be a nice arm there. Tanner Scott is a huge addition for the Marlins. Now, I've already had questions in Discord, which are the right questions to be asking. Let me say it again, that the rankings come out on the 1st of the month. So August 1st, tomorrow, the rankings will come out. The following day, August 2nd, the Solds rankings will be updated. At this point in time, it looks like Scott, who has been one of the better relievers in baseball the last 2 months, he's been terrific. It looks like he's, in the mix to be the supporting piece. Mike Schilt came out, the manager of the Padres, and said after this trade happened, Suarez is still our closer. So it's great to have Scott. Suarez is still our guy. Scott probably picks up saves here and there. He's obviously a lefty as well, which helps with matchups. But he becomes a high leverage power middle reliever from the sound of it. You never know how things are going to go. Suarez struggles. It's easy to look at, we've got Scott there. Okay. But for now, this is a negative in the fantasy world if you're in a 5x5 league and it saves. Because Scott is now going from being the guy to being someone who's picking up scraps. Again, he's pitching great. And I would have to think it's a great change for him to go. I'm biased. East Coast to West Coast. Yeah. San Diego's a beautiful place. The team's got a chance at the playoffs, all this kind of stuff, positive atmosphere, all that. But his value does decrease slightly in the fantasy space because he's now a support piece in San Diego. This deal was widely talked about. We've talked about Trevor Rogers here on this show. You and I talked about this, and I mentioned how, look, I added him, was it Labor? I added him, a month ago. And I said, look, he's pitching okay. I'm looking at some matchups here. We'll see what we got. And the fact of the matter is Rogers has been effective. He was ineffective the other day against the Braves, which I did not start him in that outing. And he was really good a couple of years ago before injuries and off the field things kind of stuck him a little bit. So the Orioles made a move to add him. Fine. But as a lot of the analysts were saying, yesterday, number one, Rogers is not starting for you unless things have gone horribly wrong in the playoffs. So is this really a positive move for the Orioles? Secondly, they paid a price. And I think it was, who was it? It was someone on MLB Network that even suggested one of the former GMs. I'm drawing a blank. It wasn't Jim Duquette. I'll think of it in a second. Suggested that, if you're going to deal Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers, couldn't you get a Blake Snell type of pitcher? I don't know. The Orioles are going for it this year, but obviously have an eye toward the future because, again, Rogers is not a dominating guy. They probably doesn't even start in a playoff series for them, but they have control of him. The price was really high. Norby is one of the better second basemen in baseball in terms of prospect status. Kyle Stowers is one of the better outfield prospects in baseball. Stowers is going to play every day. We'll talk about Norby in a few minutes. Marlins did a great job here trading a guy that, whatever, right? A solid 4th, 5th starter and getting 2 guys in Norby and Stowers that in theory they can build around for the next 5 or 6 years. So that was a really good move for them. Stowers becomes somebody that in mixed leagues, maybe you take a shot, right? He's probably going to play every day. They get Brian De La Cruz went out. We'll talk about that. There's a chance that Stowers is in the lineup every day. And he's got 25, 30 home run power. He can hit. He's a solid addition this weekend if you're looking for some pop. Trevor Rogers, again, I can't say it's a negative going to the Orioles because it's a much better environment, obviously, than in Miami. It's not a terrible place to pitch in Baltimore either. The problem for Rogers is that every measure, and I was talking about this with Phil Backer yesterday, every measure in terms of oomph is down. CSW is down, swing strike rate is down, first pitch strike rate is down, K rate is down, K per 9 rate is down, O swing on those swings on pitches outside the strike zone is on. Everything in terms of dominance is down with Trevor Rogers, and all the numbers are basically league average-ish. So I don't know what the Orioles saw. But they obviously think there's something they can do here because that was a significant price to pay for a guy who really looks like a 4th or 5th starter. But it was one of the bigger moves of the day, mostly because of what the Marlins got on the other side. The Guardians made a move to add Alex Cobb for Jacob Brezhnehan and a player to be named later. Cobb is right on the cusp of being ready to start. He's missed all the entire seasons, had setbacks and setbacks and setbacks with the Giants. He gets dealt the Guardians. The Guardians are saying he's going in the rotation. Cobb, when he is healthy, which is a rare occurrence, when he's healthy, he's a tough out. I mean, he's tough to hit. And, Cobb versus Rogers is healthy, right? So it's a huge difference. But every team in baseball would rather have Cobb than Rogers if they had to win a game tomorrow. Both guys were healthy, right? So good addition by the Guardians. He'll go into the rotation. He's an immediate addition in AL-only leagues. Mixed leaguers, we got to still be patient because of the fact that, again, he hasn't made a start this year in the bigs. So it's been a really messy season physically for him trying to get healthy. Martin Perez went to the Padres for Ronaldus Jimenez. Who cares about Perez? The good news for Perez being dealt is now there's a way for the Pirates on the other side of things to keep Bailey Falter and Luis Ortiz in the rotation. This is something we talked about, right? What happens with Perez and Gonzalez? How's this going to work out? Well, Perez has been dealt out of the way, so that's good. He's a streaming option at best. I would not be interested in Perez at all. Maybe, a month from now, there's a great matchup and he's making a spot start or something, but he's not a value of interest. It's more about allowing Falter and Ortiz, as I noted, to stay in the rotation for the Pirates. The Red Sox acquired Luis Garcia. Luis Garcia obviously was one of the bigger names. Let me take that back. Was not one of the bigger names, but he was one of the more coveted middle relievers in baseball because he's an aging guy who's pitching well. He's not a big contract guy or anything like that. So he goes to the Red Sox, no fantasy value to him. On the other side of things, Ben Joyce, right? This is what we thought would happen. Estevez got dealt. Luis Garcia got dealt. Okay, we're going to go Ben Joyce work in the 9th inning. Might still happen. Okay, but last night it was Hunter Strickland. Ugh. And, Hunter Strickland, I've seen him. He's a Giant for years. He's rah-rah, aggressive kind of guy. He's an effective major league pitcher. He is absolutely, without question, not the future. He's absolutely, without question, less talented than Ben Joyce. But here we are. So I don't know if Joyce is going to end up being the guy or not. I don't know if they're going to go with Strickland. I don't know if it was a one-off. I don't know if it's going to be a split scenario. I'm still hopeful it's Ben Joyce because, again, this played out the way we anticipated it would in the bullpen for the Angels, even though they didn't trade any of their bats. But it was disappointing to see Hunter Strickland get involved last night for the 9th inning for the Angels. All right, let's go to the next page. We're still on this page. My really, yeah, I had a couple beers last night. Gregory Soto went to the Orioles as the Orioles worked to bolster their bullpen. They also added Sir Anthony Dominguez, so that's a couple of Phillies, obviously. And again, I think it's really strange that the Phillies and Orioles are making trades like this. There is a path to these two teams meeting in the World Series, which would be fascinating, all the storylines that would come out of that. But Dominguez was added the other day. Gregory Soto was added yesterday. Soto, obviously, a nice left-handed pitcher in the bullpen. Craig Kimbrell's been wonky of late. Craig Kimbrell can be wonky. When you look at Kimbrell and Cano and Soto and Dominguez, that's a really good or at least potentially dominant foursome of arms in the bullpen. So that was a very good addition for the Orioles, who gave up Seth Johnson and Moses Chase. Kevin Kiermaier went to the Dodgers. He was traded for Ryan Yarbrough. Yarbrough was put on waivers because the Dodgers were going to get rid of him. They ended up swapping him, Kevin Kiermaier, for Yarbrough. Kiermaier still plays good defense. He gives you decent at bats. He's not a fancy player at all. He's more of a postseason ad, right? A guy that can help you on the base pass, a guy that can play defense late if you want to sub him in for the game. Question is now, what does this do to the outfield? With the moves the Dodgers made the last couple of days, Outman and Andy Pages may not even be part of this roster. I mean, we'll have to see how they determine this is all going to come together, but one of those guys is out, maybe both of them. So the Dodgers, again, they're playing this game of shuttling players up and down and doing they're kind of doing what the Rays have done for years. The difference being with the Dodgers that they're making trades and bringing in names that we know versus the Rays who are just, outfielder 6 and outfielder 5. No one knows who the hell they are. Dodgers kind of doing the same thing. They're really using that 40-man roster. And they added Kevin Kiermaier, I think, again, more for the postseason than for right now. The Giants' power move was to add Mark Canha. Okay. Mark Canha, first base outfield eligible. Canha is somebody that he gives good at bats. So we're talking about Kiermaier. Mark Canha gives good at bats, right? He works the count. He'll take a walk. He's got a little bit of power. He's got defensive flexibility. He's played for Bob Melvin before. He's a very cerebral player that people like. So it's a good addition for the Giants in that respect. But they got rid of Jorge Soler to bring in Mark Canha. It's like you did not improve offensively. And that's why a lot of people were questioning, what are the Giants doing? They didn't trade Blake Snell. We'll talk about that. What's the plan? The Giants GM came out after the trade deadline, says that we think we have the best starting rotation in baseball. Have you looked at the Mariners? Anyway, that's what the Giants are saying. They brought in Mark Canha. The Giants will be another one of these teams, and this is what they've become the last couple of years. It's Flores, it's Estrada, it's Canha, it's Yastrzemski, it's all these guys. They're kind of ham and eggers. They're trying to win 90 games each year, and for the most part, they've been successful doing this over the last decade or so. But it'd be nice to see them do something other than give Blake Snell a 2-year contract, which he's going to opt out of after 1 year. Dylan Floro, we were hoping might take over the 9th inning. Good news. Kyle Finnegan wasn't traded. Bad news. He's blown a couple of games here. He's pitched poorly of late, but he's still going to remain the closer of the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks got rid of Hunter Harvey earlier. They traded Dylan Floro to the Diamondbacks. Did I say Diamondbacks? Nationals I'm talking about, of course. Dylan Floro goes to the Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks all of a sudden have reworked this bullpen, and it's a good group. And if they get Merrill Kelly back, and he's Merrill Kelly, if they get Eduardo Rodriguez back, and he's Eduardo Rodriguez, I can't even say it, Rodriguez. This is a team, again, just like last year. They can make some serious noise in the playoffs if they can get there. So Diamondbacks making moves that on the surface, but these are good moves, especially in bolstering that bullpen. Austin Slater was dealt to the Orioles. The Orioles doing some strange things. They bring in Austin Slater and they bring in Eloy Jimenez. Okay. I mean, they had Austin Hayes already. Like, I don't really understand. Is Eloy Jimenez better than Austin Hayes? Well, he can't play defense and he gets hurt all the time. So I don't see that as an improvement. Austin Slater is somebody that can really hit left-handed pitching. So if he is utilized effectively, as he almost always will be, if he's healthy, he's a good offensive player against left-handed pitching. Like, he can really do that. Not going to play against righties. He's dealt with health issues and stuff, but he's good against lefties. So I, in theory, like the mix here, the moves that the Orioles made, but it's like, I think I saw that they added 7 players to the 26-man roster. This 7 players out of 26 for a team that's, doing pretty well. That's a lot of change, and we'll see how that goes. Good additions, but both Slater and Jimenez are AL-only plays, are not mixed league options at the moment. The Rays added Dylan Carlson. Everyone was all excited about Dylan Carlson on MLB Network yesterday. Carlson at one time was one of the top 5 outfield prospects in baseball. He was somebody, first-round draft pick. He was going to be a 2015 guy at the big league level. Everyone pretty much thought that. A switch hitter, good defensive player. His time in the Cardinals has been disastrous. It just has not come together for him. He goes to the Rays. Maybe the Rays can figure it out. I hate to see guys go to it's me, right? Maybe it's just me. I hate to see guys go to Tampa Bay. It's like, ugh. But he'll get a chance to play there, you have to think. And, a lot has been made about, Adolis Garcia. I'm trying to think of the names. The Cardinals outfielders, they've let go. Adolis Garcia and Lane Thomas and Randy Arozarena. Like a lot of recent years, the Cardinals haven't been able to unlock some of these outfield guys, and they go to other teams and they get to be pretty good players. So there's some hope Dynasty leaguers, mixed leaguers, we're holding right now because Carlson has been a mess this season, and it may be a scenario where they have to work with them, through the offseason and such. But in dynasty leagues, Dylan Carlson, who I kept on my dynasty league until this year, might have to investigate adding Dylan Carlson back. Brian De La Cruz goes to the Marlins for Jung-Suk Shim and Garrett Forrester. The Pirates, this is the big move the Pirates made. Obviously, they're financially less inclined to spend big dollars than other teams. They don't want to blow up their rotation with Jones and Skeens and Keller. They kept the bullpen together with, led by Bednar there at the end. And Brian De La Cruz is a very solid offensive player. He's just another guy that they can throw out there consistently. I don't think his outlook changes appreciably from what it was with the Marlins, which means he's barely on the mixed league radar. But depending upon where he hits in this order, they've got some weapons, and obviously Cruz and Reynolds jumped to the top of this list here. But Brian De La Cruz might end up being a decent run producer down the stretch for the Pirates. Andrew Chafin was one of the many relievers, that not just closers, the relievers that was dealt. The Rangers picked him up from the Tigers. Chafin has pitched very well of late. A lot of people, what is his last 17 outings or 11 outings, 17? I don't know. I think his last 17 outings, or maybe it was 17 or 11. He's been terrific. Maybe it's 17 with 26 strikeouts. I saw something like that. Chafin is what he is. He's a lefty reliever, and he's good at his job, and he's in a nice groove right now. The Mets acquired Paul Blackburn from the A's for Cade Morris. Blackburn will ostensibly replace Kodai Senga. And, Senga had the shoulder issue that we talked about all season until just of late when he comes back, and then he hurts his calf, goes on the 60-day injury list. In theory, Senga could return before the season is over. He's going to make one start. So Paul Blackburn is basically in this rotation. He returned from the injured list himself recently. He was effective-ish with the Athletics. He probably pitches the similar levels with the Mets. It's a great place to pitch in New York. There was a point made on MLB Network yesterday too that, a lot of Blackburn's success has been in the Coliseum. Blackburn is a mixed league streaming option. But he does look like he'll get a chance to start every day for them, or 5 or 6, depending on what they do, through the rotation for the Mets. Paul DeJong goes to the Royals. Great addition for the team. Doesn't mean anything in fantasy. In fact, it's a killer to his value in fantasy. He's not playing third base. He's not playing first base. He's not playing shortstop with the Royals. I guess they could try him at second base if they wanted to move Massey around, and they don't like Adam Frazier or Garrett Hampson. They got all these pieces. He's a good addition for the team, but he's not a good fantasy play, and he's obviously going to play less, barring something unforeseen, with his new home versus where he was with the White Sox. Lucas Erceg went to the Royals as well. Everyone really loves this move from the Orioles' perspective. He won't close. He'll be a setup man, but he's under control for years. He's a very effective pitcher. The A's got Mason Barnett, Will Klein, and Jared Dickey in the deal. I think everyone thought the A's did a decent job getting what they got, but Erceg was kind of one of these guys who doesn't have the big name, but he is moved to a scenario where, he's going to be asked to throw high leverage innings. And, MacArthur has struggled. So there's a chance that Erceg gets some saves here and there. And there's an outside shot he ends up closing for this team. I think it's a very outside shot, but keep him on the radar, at least on a watch list, because he's pitched well for the Athletics. Josh Bell goes to the Diamondbacks. We talked about Christian Walker yesterday. The oblique issue, they're saying they don't believe it to be a major issue. They're hoping it's a more minor in nature, so he'll spend some time on the injured list, but they're hoping it's not long-term. Josh Bell was added ostensibly to give them a guy that they can turn to. Found his swing of late has Josh Bell, but he is exactly what he always is, and that's Josh Bell. So mixed leaguers, nah. You want to ride the wave for 2 weeks until Walker's back, whatever. But he's just the guy. But it's a good addition, obviously, for the Diamondbacks. Lucas Sims goes to the Red Sox. Good addition there. If he can stay healthy, he's a very effective pitcher. Mark Leiter goes to the Yankees from the Cubs for Ben Cowles and Jake Neely. Good addition by the Yankees. Just a nice arm in the bullpen that they needed. Obviously not a guy that's expected to throw high leverage innings. So there's the majority of the deals that were done. Now, let's talk about the deals that weren't done before we visit with Armando Marsal and talk some football. Blake Snell. The Giants, again, we talked about Soler and the move. I think we did, right? Here on the show. The Giants moved Soler ostensibly to help avoid the luxury tax because the Giants spend more money than most people think. They didn't want to avoid the luxury tax. They brought back Canha, who's not the same offensive player, but, give me a 340 on base percentage. It's so they made that move. They got rid of Austin Slater. I don't think anyone looks at what the Giants did and think that they won at the trade deadline. Okay. The expectation was that, look, if they're going to do something here, they just traded Soler. Why not just trade Blake Snell? Now, the Blake Snell trade wouldn't have done much financially for this team because the way the contract is structured, it would have ended up, I think it was like $5 million or something they would have saved. Like, it wasn't a lot. So maybe that was part of this, but the Giants run the real risk that, Blake Snell, who all of a sudden has found his game, who looks dominant like he was last season for the Padres, they run the real risk of him, leaving at the end of the season. So they're going to have paid him, $30 million plus. If they don't make the playoffs, to make 15 starts for them, like, oof. If they could have, in theory, gotten Stowers and Norby, would have loved to see them do that. I think that would have been a big win. That's not what they did. They held on to Blake Snell. We'll see. If the Giants make the playoffs, good move. No one wants to face Blake Snell in the playoffs. If the Giants don't make the playoffs, ugh. Tariq Skubal wasn't dealt. His name was out there because the Tigers are the Tigers, but he's been so good. I mean, we had to figure going in that Skubal would have needed to net a massive haul of players for the Tigers to have dealt him. In fact, the Tigers came out after the trade deadline and said, we were never going to trade Tariq Skubal. Makes sense. Now, this last guy is Garrett Crochet, and we talked about this a lot. You and I, right when this news story broke, a week ago, whatever it was. And while I appreciate what Crochet is trying to do, as I said, when it happened, you can't extort major league teams. And straight up, Garrett Crochet was trying to extort teams, telling them, I am not going to the bullpen, telling them I'm staying in the rotation, telling them I'm not taking a break, and telling them, if you want me to pitch for you in the playoffs, I need a new contract. He was extorting teams. And what did the teams do? They said, no, thanks, Garrett. So now what has Garrett Crochet got? And this, to me, in my opinion, this was handled completely wrong. This should have never been made public. We talked about what Chris Getz, the GM, said. He's like, look, I get his point of view, but this wasn't handled well. Clearly, it wasn't handled well. Wasn't handled well for the team. Now Crochet doesn't get traded. Now Crochet doesn't get the contract he wants. Now Crochet continues to be on the absolute worst organization in baseball. Is that what he wanted? He got what he wanted if that was it. I don't know why that's where, because it's almost like he engineered this scenario to have that be the end result. Why? Why would you do that? So now we have to deal with the following issue. And someone asked this question in the Discord this morning over at fantasyguru.com. And this is the issue that we have talked about over and over again with Garrett Crochet. What is the workload going to look like? He has been managed tightly before the All-Star break and after the All-Star break, ostensibly because the White Sox didn't want him to get hurt, because they didn't want him to blow his arm out and then not be able to get anything at the trade market. Now that the trade deadline is passed, now that they haven't moved him, do they shut him down? He says, I'm pitching, I'm a starter, I'm doing all fine. We're the organization, and we're looking at the future here, and we've got an asset that we can build around, or trade. Do the White Sox shut him down prematurely? Because remember, he's already thrown more innings this year than he has the previous 4 years. It's already there. I don't know. And I answer honestly is I don't know. I don't know if the relationship has been damaged to the point where there's all kinds of acrimony here. I don't know, again, why Crochet, unless he just loves Chicago, and that's a possibility. Why he created a scenario where it made it more difficult for him to get traded to a contending team and to get that big contract. If I'm Garrett Crochet and I've thrown 100 innings in 4 years, and teams are coming to make a move, and I let them know through my agent and the team that, look, you guys make a move for me, I really want a contract extension. I don't know why he wouldn't have. The Dodgers, everyone kept talking about the Dodgers. They got Flaherty at the end. Everyone kept talking about the Dodgers being a fit. And Dodgers they print money in the basement. They even suggested Garrett Crochet could be the next Clayton Kershaw, right? So I don't know. But the bottom line is Crochet got what he deserved, I think, by trying to extort the teams. No one paid the price. And as a result, now his fantasy value for the rest of 2024 is uncertain. The White Sox have zero reason to push him. Zero. We have not seen anything yet to suggest they're shutting him down or they're just going to pitch him 3 or 4 innings every time he's out there. I don't get the sense that he would appreciate that if that's what they chose to do. But we have to monitor closely what's happening with Garrett Crochet because it obviously where we're sitting right now makes us a lot less comfortable than where we were sitting yesterday with the potential of him being traded. So when we wrap things up here on the show, I'll give a couple of comments on some injured guys, Robles, Carter, and Trout, the call-ups of Holliday, a little note on Jeff Springs, Norby, and Eugenio Suarez. But we're halfway through the show, and you know what that means. Now that means it's time to talk us some football. I was watching rugby in the Olympics. That's a crazy game. I don't know. It's not the same thing as football, but I guess it's let's just bring in Armando Marsal. We talk with him every Wednesday here on the show. You can find Armando over at fantasyguru.com, obviously. Armando, welcome to the show. Have you your thoughts on rugby? Is that a thing? Or are the Olympics a thing in the Marsal household?
Well, yeah, we've been watching the Olympics. We got some of the basketball game this weekend. My wife and the kids love the swimming and stuff like that, so we watch a lot of that. We've seen some of the gymnastics. I have 2 girls at home. My daughter, and my wife. And they're enjoying the gymnastic stuff, and they're big fans of it. So yeah, we've been watching it. It's not sitting down and spending tons of time there watching it, but I've caught a couple of the things. Rugby, I saw a clip of I don't know her name, but she ran right over someone and just took that to the house. I don't know what they call it, a touchdown, what they called it, but man, that was impressive. So yeah, I've seen some clips. I haven't seen any rugby games just yet though, but I have seen some clips.
Yeah, I was watching the other night for like 5 minutes, and one of the U.S. gals stuck someone. Not the player you're talking about. I saw that too, but she put her shoulder, drove her into the ground. I'm like, that's a great tackle. They should have her teach NFL players how to make tackles. Armando Marsal, you can follow him on Twitter X at Armando_Marsal. You can find him in the Discord all the time at fantasyguru.com, of course. You can catch him doing his show. Go to the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page at fantasyguru.com. You can find his Mind of Marsal podcast as well. So, and he's doing all these 20 podcasts in the preseason product at fantasyguru.com. We have a show we're doing in a couple of days here. So lots going on with Armando, and let's move it back into a zone where we both are a little more comfortable than rugby, which neither one of us even knows the terminology.
I do not.
Yeah, I don't either. Don't worry. I put you on the spot, but I have no idea. A couple of quarterbacks signed huge deals, and we had Tua Tagovailoa got a 4-year, $212 million deal. Immediately thereafter, the next quarterback, of course, has to get more money. Jordan Love gets 4 years, $220 million. Massive contracts for one guy that we're all worried about his health, and the other guy who's been a starter for 1 year. Massive numbers. What do you think about the 2 contracts? And if you had to choose one of these 2 guys in the fantasy space this year, who would be on your team?
So as far as Tua's contract is concerned, I'm from Miami, and I've said it, since day one. I'm not a big fan of him. I don't think he's worth that contract. Yes, he led the league in passing, and yes, he's done good for fantasy. But I've noticed that, in big games, he really doesn't show up in a lot of these big games. His record in December and January combined is 500. He has a losing record in January, 9-7, in December throughout his career. So, he lost some crucial games. A lot of people have told me, a lot of fans, he lost in Kansas City. It was bad weather. I get that. Someone has to win the game, number one, right? And number two, the reason why they were playing in Kansas City is because they couldn't win some crucial games down the line, right? So, look, in today's NFL, given the market, given, the supply and demand, I understand the contract. I don't agree with it. But, I've read kind of, not in really detail, but what I've read, it is a friendly contract where the team will have an option towards the end of that contract and not, I think it's 93 or 94 million. It will be guaranteed if they decide to back out and pull out of the contract at some point. For me, it's a prove-it deal for him. Obviously, a very nice, lucrative prove-it deal. As far as Jordan Love, I mean, look, I've always liked Jordan Love since he entered the NFL. He obviously hasn't been a starter as long as Tua Tagovailoa was playing behind Aaron Rodgers, but I like what I saw last year. I like what he did with, the supporting cast, a young supporting cast. He took a young team, made a playoff run, and I think it's going to be a team here to stay. They're in a tough division there. But for me, it's today's supply and demand, unfortunately. Do both these quarterbacks should, based on their track record and what they've done so far, should they be getting paid this amount? That's up for discussion, I think, right? That's up for debate. But given the market, given the supply and demand, I understand why these teams have done what they've done here and pay these quarterbacks, because I mean, I was talking to a friend. Think about what the market's going to be when CJ Stroud goes to get paid. Like, that is going to be tough. Like, it's going to be really tough to pay that man if he continues to go on his trajectory at to the level he's playing right now.
Speaking of contracts, a guy who hasn't got paid and apparently is getting a little antsy is Jamar Chase. And all of us at fantasyguru.com, and let's be honest, in the fantasy space, love Jamar Chase. He's in everyone's top 5 wide receivers, most people's top 3, maybe their top 1, right? Like there's everything to love on the field, but he's not practicing. And there's been some talk from the front office. It's like, well, we're not really looking to extend him at this point in time. And at what point does this start to concern you, or has it already happened? Is it enough of a concern to say, look, I had him as my 1, but now I'm going CeeDee Lamb or doing something different? Talk us through the situation as we see it right now with Jamar Chase.
As things stand today, Ray, I'm not overly concerned. I think there's still plenty of time between now and the start of the season where something gets worked out. I think it'd be silly, right, for the Bengals not to view this as a long-term investment when you're looking at Jamar Chase. We know what he brings to the table. There's no denying that he's one of the best in football. There's the connection with him and Joe Burrow. Like it's you pay Jamar Chase to keep him around not only for his talent but to make your quarterback happy as well. So I think eventually it gets done. It's just a matter of how long this drags out and how messy it gets before it gets done. Eventually, I do think it gets done. So for right now, I haven't made any adjustments. I'm not overreacting to this news. We've kind of seen, there was uncertainty with the quarterbacks now. They're getting paid. And there was uncertainty about other, players. They've gotten paid. Like, I'm going to let this play out. I'm not going to let it impact. Now, if I'm drafting the week before the NFL season starts and this is still a mess, then yeah, at that point, maybe we adjust our rankings a little bit, right? But right now, I mean, there's still, a month, a little bit over a month left for the start of the NFL season. So I'm going to sit this one out and wait and see how it plays out. I'm still drafting him. When I get the top 4 or 5 pick and in my best ball draft, I'm still drafting Jamar Chase. Nothing has chased in a redraft league. I'll still be taking him as well. So for this time, at this moment, I'm not really making any adjustments on the rankings as far as Jamar Chase is concerned.
Marsal, Ray Flowers here on Fantasy Sports Daily. Armando joins us about 12:30 Eastern every Wednesday. Obviously, that's why he's here right now. We've talked a lot about the Broncos, their backfield, Armando. We've had discussions about who their quarterback is going to be. Greg Dulcich is somebody that, there's a report out there from ESPN, a big season from Greg Dulcich. And I think there have been times over the last couple of years where everyone's been in on Greg Dulcich, but he's just been hurt. He's one of these nebulous tight end 2s, right? One of this group of 15 guys. It's like, well, if everything breaks right, he's tight end 9. If everything goes the other way, he's tight end 19. What's your appetite for taking a chance on Greg Dulcich? And do you believe this report that, hey, man, this could be something this year?
So I look at this report and I say, okay, put it on my list. I have a list of all the reports I kind of monitor for players and see if now these kind of reports continue throughout training camp, right? Like, do we see a continued consistent drumbeat, right? Are we seeing Dulcich looking good? Are we seeing him catch a lot of passes? Is he involved in the first team offense? All of that stuff. And if everything adds up, then I'll start making adjustments. Look, there's no denying as a rookie, he showed some promise. But like you said, injuries derailed him last year. Played 2 games. I think it was 2-3 games that he played, just dealing with the hamstring injury. So for me, I have him inside my top 30 or 32 as far as the tight end position is concerned. But like you said, he's kind of clumped in there with a bunch of the other tight ends where if things go right, hey, you know what? Maybe he could be a top 15, top 16 tight end in PPR settings, but things have to go right for him, right? So I'm not aggressively targeting him in regular redraft leagues, maybe in tight end premium leagues and very, very deep leagues or, deep dynasty settings where, there's 32 teams, 16 teams with a bunch of roster spots. Okay. But in a 12-team redraft league where, just not the shallow benches, I don't see him on my radar. He shouldn't be on my radar, at least in those leagues. I think it's very league dependent.
Armando, let's talk about the situation in the backfield with the Patriots. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson's the guy. We all know that. They've brought in Antonio Gibson. And, Gibson has been a fascinating guy, wide receiver, running back. There's been moments where he was popping with the team in Washington. There's been other moments where he's been hurt. You look at this receiving core with the Patriots, and all of us are universally saying the wide receiver core, and depending upon who the quarterback is and what offense really looks like, there's a potential for a guy like Gibson to have some sneaky PPR value. Potential. Do you buy that line of thought? Is he a must draft if you have Stevenson? Do you think he takes over early down work if Stevenson goes down anyway? So is that the right kind of handcuff? Talk us through that situation in the backfield with the Patriots.
I think he's a volatile handcuff, right? I think that he is someone that maybe can step into some opportunities. I think the quarterback situation is really going to, also play a role into his, into what his value is. Because if it's Jacoby Brissett, I did the QB target shares. I'm going to post it probably tomorrow. It's already done. I'm just going to make sure all the links and all the formulas and stuff like that are working in the spreadsheet. But so Brissett throws to the running back, has thrown to the running back in 18% of his pass attempts throughout his career. 28.5% of those of his pass attempts have gone to the tight end. So he's someone that leans a lot on the tight end. That's top 5 in the NFL right now of all 32 quarterbacks. So, and then May likes to take shots downfield. Like he's someone that's going to sling it downfield and not be afraid to do so. So there aren't many situations where I see Gibson having a huge role in the passing game. I do think he's going to have a role in the passing game. I'm viewing him as I have him, I think, as RB60 or RB61 in my draft book. Kind of that's where I'm viewing him. An RB6, low end RB5, someone that you can have there on the bench if Stevenson goes down. What can we expect from Gibson? 12 to 15 opportunities, 10 to 15 opportunities per game, really depending on what the team does. Not someone I'm overly excited about drafting, not someone I'm going out of my way. This is just an offense that when I look at it, it's Stevenson, Hunter Henry, and then I don't have a ton of other interest because I think there's a lot of uncertainty, right, going into the season. And I think monitoring news for a team like New England can really give you an edge versus your opponents because right now everyone it feels the same way. Or at least most people feel the same way about the New England Patriots. There's going to be someone else that comes out and has a decent role. Does that translate to fantasy production consistent? Maybe not, but there is someone else that's going to stand out and have a decent role. That's the one we want to target here. So I'm going to monitor that, the New England Patriots, training camp news and reports. I'm going to monitor that closely and see what I can find and identify there.
Armando, the situation with the Niners is such that it's Christian McCaffrey or bust, right? Number one for most people on their boards. But he's an aging player with a lot of workload. There's been seasons where he's disappeared. We know that whoever steps in there, if he goes down with an injury, is going to be usable on a weekly basis. We know it. We've seen it happen for years, right? Garendo was drafted, and he's a tooled-up prospect, but he tweaked his leg, and so he's a rookie, so Elijah Mitchell's been the number 2 guy for a while now. Elijah Mitchell seems to be the frailest running back in football. He's constantly hurt. Very effective, but constantly hurt. And then you've got Jordan Mason, who we're hearing these good things about. So break down the backfield behind CMC, because if he were to go down, again, whoever the number 1 is for the Niners is someone we're going to be starting on a weekly basis in fantasy.
Absolutely, Ray. And for me, it's Elijah Mitchell. It's been that way from the beginning. I was getting exposure to Garendo in best ball leagues because they did draft him. Now the injury, it's a setback, and if it was a veteran running back, maybe it's not as significant of a setback. But you mentioned he's a rookie, so he's going to have to play catch up with the playbook. He's going to have to play catch up with the pass blocking. That's very important for these rookie running backs. All of this is going to have to play a role. As far as Mason's concerned, look, he's someone that you want to keep on the radar. He's someone that you want to keep on the radar in deeper leagues. You mentioned Elijah Mitchell. The reason why there's concerns with Mitchell is not because he's the next guy up. It's because even if he's the next guy up, he's has difficulty staying on the field as well. So, I right now I'm handcuffing Elijah Mitchell is my highest owned handcuff in best ball right now. Like when I don't draft McCaffrey, I'm investing in the backfield of San Francisco, and he's my highest owned San Francisco running back right now. I'm going to continue doing so, but you want to splash some Mason, you want to splash some Garendo because Mitchell is fragile. He's very cheap, but he's fragile. And you just have to have, that in mind. I would only do this, though, because I know we're probably going to get asked this question. Well, if you draft McCaffrey, do you draft Mitchell and Mason or Mitchell and Garendo? No. Pick one. Like I'm going with Mitchell here. I know that he's, injury prone. I know that there's concerns as far as him staying on the field. And I know when I'm drafting, I keep that in mind. But he's the one I will be handcuffing McCaffrey with at this time. If anything changes between now and the start of the season, well, obviously, you could look at the rankings or I'll say something in Discord. You can ask me. But right now, it's Mitchell. I've kind of been steady with that throughout the entire offseason.
Obviously, the running back that we want with the Texans, there is no question. It's Joe Mixon. And Joe Mixon, for better or worse, I think it's for the better, right? It's one of the reasons why we drafted him over the years is he's always on the field. Like he plays. He gets his 15, 17 touches, and they're not sexy, but there it is. He's not going to play in the Hall of Fame game. Ultimately, who gives a damn? Dameon Pierce is going to play. I can see it now. Dameon Pierce goes out 15 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown, and all of a sudden everyone's talking about Dameon Pierce. You're handcuffing Pierce to Mixon. Yes, I assume we're doing that. Are you doing that? And if you're not, if you don't have Mixon, is Pierce one of these guys you want to pick off from somebody else? Is he on your list of those kind of running backs?
Yeah, I like drafting Pierce in the later rounds, whether you draft Mixon or not. If you draft Mixon, I think Pierce is a good handcuff. Look, we saw it last year. Like Singletary had 49% of the rush attempts for the Texans. I'm expecting some type of 65-70, 65 to 45, 70-30 split with Mixon. I know there's concerns about Mixon being washed up. He's been around the league for a long time, a lot of carries. But they brought him in. This is a team that's playing to win this year. Like they're building the play. They have youth and they have veteran depth. So they're playing to win this year. They're set up for the future as well right now when you look at this roster. So I think Mixon's going to have a solidified workload. So long as he's healthy, he's going to be their guy. Pierce will have some opportunities here and there. But this is Mixon's backfield, in my opinion. And I definitely think you get the insurance policy, right? The insurance policy is Dameon Pierce. We know what we get with Dameon Pierce. We've seen it before. Yeah, he regressed last year, but the opportunities will be there for him. He accounted for 43% of the team's rush attempts last year. Was it pretty? No, but the opportunities were there, and that's what we're looking for when we're looking for these handcuffs.
One final running back question for you, Armando. The Panthers were obviously a mess last year for a variety of reasons. It all gets heaped on Bryce Young, but they were just a mess. And one of the guys that was effective was Chubba Hubbard, sorry. And there's reports coming out that he looks more explosive and he looks good and all of that. Of course, they drafted Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks is coming back from the ACL injury. He's not fully healthy at the moment as we're sitting here talking. How are you handling this backfield? Is it I'm drafting Brooks and Hubbard? Is it that offense was so messy last year, I'm not really involved? Talk us through what you see also between Hubbard and Brooks, because I think a lot of people just assume, well, when Brooks is healthy, he's getting 18 touches a week. Do you see it that way?
I think once Brooks is 100%, this will become his backfield. The question at hand is, when is that going to be? When is the team going to look at Brooks and say, okay, we're comfortable with giving this young man the full workload? Are they going to be competing? Does this happen, when in the middle of the season and this team doesn't have a winning record, and, there's no reason to force Brooks to that, heavy workload. So I think there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to this backfield. I have Hubbard as a low-end RB4, high-end RB5 kind of ranked right now. That's where I've been taking him and stuff like that. I do think early on in the season he's going to be the back in this backfield, the one that they rely on, especially if Brooks is unable to suit up or if he's nowhere near 100%. So it's a very cloudy situation. I like Brooks. And I've said this all along, and I continue to have this stance on him, is I think he's going to be good. I think he's arguably the best running back from this draft class. But the problem is, if you're doing a redraft league and you're expecting production as a rookie, I think that's difficult, right? Because he's coming off the injury. So I would expect him to be out or limited to some capacity for the first half of the season. That's how I view Brooks, right? So I'm drafting him as such a redraft. In a dynasty, absolutely. He's worth that first round pick 100% because long-term outlook looks very, very promising for the young man. But this year, I do have some concerns, and I just don't know if we're going to get the production. It's kind of like the Hawkinses. We know what we're getting. Problem is, you're not going to get it for the entire of the season. Nick Chubb is another. Like, these are kind of players that all fit the same description where we know what we're going to get from this player, but we're not going to get it for the entirety of the season because of an injury. So that's kind of where I have Brooks mixed in with all of those players where I'm kind of hesitant in redraft leagues and in leagues that are longer term keepers and in dynasty, we can invest in these kind of players.
Armando Marsal, Ray Flowers here on the show again. Armando's with us every Wednesday, about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. If you go to the website, click on the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. You can get access to our full season product at fantasyguru.com, our wagering product at fantasyguru.com, our DFS package at fantasyguru.com. You can get all three of them together. That's an option too. That's all available. Just click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Armando, you're again with us every Wednesday. You're doing your Mind of Marsal podcast. You're constantly in the Discord answering questions. You've got your draft book available right now. What else are you working on that's going to be dropping here in the next couple of days? The
QB target shares. That's the big spreadsheet I've been working on. It's going to have some points that I some notes and stuff with some of the numbers. It's already done. I have it here. I'm just going to check all of the formulas, make sure everything's feeding correctly so that the numbers are accurate and stuff like that. So be up by tomorrow, the latest. I'm going to try my best to have it up by this evening. We got that coming out. We got the training camp reports. Those go live next week. We usually start the week after the Hall of Fame game. We're going to get that going on, and it'll be myself, Tyler, Russell, Justin Fencerman is going to help out with that as well. We got our draft battles coming out here as well, and just a ton of content, Ray. Like you said, we're in Discord. It gets more active now in Discord. There's going to be a lot of questions as far as drafts are concerned, so make sure you tag myself. I know you're in there all the time. I saw you in there this morning, last night. Rich is in there, Tyler, everyone, Jeff, Russell, everyone's in there answering questions. So yeah, just getting ready for the football season. I said this. I recorded the podcast last night with Rich, and he's like, man, you're smiling for me of the year. We're talking football. I'm like, dude, it's like a kid waiting for Christmas, right? It's like, oh, I'm so excited that the football season is right around the corner. I truly cannot wait. That first Sunday, there's nothing like that first Sunday of the NFL season. It's truly a great day. So I'm looking forward to that day, and I'm looking forward to the start of the NFL season, Ray.
If you're looking forward to this day, you can find 3 of my articles on the auction drafting. Those will all drop today. So if people want to look for something from me from the football side of things, obviously I'm still heavily involved with baseball. But as Armando's talking, he's 100% in with football right now, as the crew mostly is at fantasyguru.com. And as he said, great product, great group of people, constantly in front of you, right? Answering questions in Discord, with the articles, with the live stream, with the podcast. A great product we have available. Again, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can get everyone's work, including this guy sitting with us as he does every Wednesday, Armando Marsal. Armando, thanks again. Go enjoy some rugby and the rest of the Olympics, and we'll talk in about a week.
Sounds good, Ray. Have a great one, right? Take care, everyone.
You got it, too. That's Armando Marsal, and check out his podcast, Mind of Marsal, over at fantasyguru.com. Click that Elite Plus tab. Find it as you scroll down there as well. All right, a couple of comments here before we wrap things up on the side of baseball. You probably saw it by now. If you didn't, Jackson Holliday was promoted. The move of Norby out of town by the Orioles caused the promotion of Jackson Holliday. Holliday, has done a really good job since demoted. He was obviously terrible at the start of the season with the big league team. He's back now. The expectation is he's going to play daily in the month of July. He's got an OPS about 950, so he's in a nice groove right now. One would have to assume he's playing every day at second base. Especially with Jorge Mateo out with the injury he's dealing with his arm. So the rankings will come out tomorrow at fantasyguru.com. Where does Holliday fit in the pecking order at second base, at shortstop? We'll have that for you tomorrow at fantasyguru.com. Connor Norby, who we've mentioned multiple times here on the show, just a note here, the Marlins, in their infinite wisdom, have decided to demote Norby to AAA. So Norby, who's playing every day for the Orioles, goes to the Marlins, who suck, who gutted their team in the last couple of days, and they sent him to the minors. Marlin's going to Marlin. Maybe they want him to play third base. They want to get some reps down there. I don't know. Maybe this is just a salary thing, or they're trying. I don't know. Very odd that one of the best teams in baseball has room for the guy, and one of the worst doesn't. Very disappointing, especially if you have Norby on your team. Jeffrey Springs, who a lot of people were really interested in, talked a lot about him in the Discord over at fantasyguru.com. Gave up a couple of runs, 6 hits in 3 2/3 innings to the Marlins yesterday. I guess it's a positive because he was healthy. That's not a great effort against a Marlins team that's not good. His fastball came in at just under 90 miles an hour on average, which is about 2 miles an hour down from where it was prior to the injury. Again, he's out there. Okay. That was not as good of an outing as we were anticipating after his success in his minor league rehab scenario. So Springs is somebody we're going to continue to watch. Again, we talked about if you wanted to add him, go for it. But understand, too, Tampa Bay sold a bunch of pieces themselves. They're not overly aggressively pushing for the playoffs this year as well. So there's also that question of how much would they push him. Victor Robles was removed from the game last night with a hip injury. Now, Scott Service said that after the game, he's been dealing with this for a while. Doesn't sound like it's a real injury per se, more of just a maintenance thing. He had a solid outing yesterday before he was taken out of the line. He's day-to-day, but we'll see, because obviously a huge part of his game is his wheels, the ability to run and steal a base. We'll monitor that situation with his hip. Sounds like, though, a minor thing, but something to keep an eye on. Evan Carter, negative news with Evan Carter. He's unlikely to return this season. Woof. That back issue, they basically just said there's not enough time. Doesn't sound like there's a legitimate concern with him long term. But in the short term, again, the regular season seems like a no-go for Evan Carter. So if you're holding on to him on just a roster spot, adios. If you have space on the IL, okay. If you don't, looks like Evan Carter with that back issue is somebody that can go. And then finally, Mike Trout. General Manager Perry Manassi told reporters yesterday that Mike Trout is being reevaluated after another setback. We talked about this earlier this week. There's a legitimate chance this season is done, like we've talked about previously. And I've raised this question previously on the show, and I will raise it again here as we go out today on the show. Is Mike Trout a Hall of Famer? He can't stay on the field. As I noted last time we talked about this, his career arc is very similar to Don Mattingly. Greatness for a while, good for a while. Mike Trout, at a career crossroads, and the Angels are paying him a crap ton of money to play half the season for him. So we'll see with Mike Trout. Hopefully we'll get some updates here soon. Again, I'm not hopeful. It sounds not good yet again for Mike Trout. I want to thank Armando Marsal for his visit today. We'll visit with him again next Wednesday. We visit with him every Wednesday. Tyler Beaker will be on with us tomorrow. He's on every Thursday. Russell Clay will be on with us Friday. He's on every Friday. About half an hour into the show, we talk football with those three guys Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The first half of those three shows, as well as all the shows Monday and Tuesdays, all baseball. Don't forget to go to fantasyguru.com. Ask the questions in the Discord. There to help you out all day on the baseball side of things. Having some success recently here with some wagering. So glad to hear that some people are enjoying that. The DFS articles are still rocking and rolling as well. We're going to cover baseball all the way through. We're not going to give up when football starts. As much as Armando loves week one, we're not going to give up from baseball down the stretch. We'll cover it all the way, soup to nuts, till the season is over. Go to fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. I will have the rankings available for seasonal baseball tomorrow. All 600-plus players re-ranked. We'll do it one other time on the final month of the season, September 1st. And then we'll have the Solds rankings out after that as well. Don't forget that I'll be on today with Jeff Manns on the Elite Sports Show. That's Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 Eastern with Jeff Manns. I'm on every Wednesday. So from 3 to 6 a day, Jeff and I talking about that. I got to get going. I got to get some rankings done. Diving into the lab to get that the final touches put together for all of you for that release tomorrow. Again, I want to thank Armando Marsal. I am Ray Flowers. 9 o'clock Pacific time, 12 o'clock Eastern time, Fantasy Sports Daily, Monday through Friday, right here. Follow it. Be there. Tell a friend. Thanks for joining us today, and hopefully you'll join us in the future as well. I'm Ray Flowers, Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.